and you're ready to go.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Stacey Kliesch, and I am here as a representative of AIA New Jersey. The webinar that we are about to present is called the Equity Guide to Advancing Careers. And I would like to introduce and thank the participants who will be presenting with me today, Carla Bonacci and Paul Rugarber. The course is approved for 2 AIA learning units, and those can also be used for people who are completing their AXP hours. Your participation will have a survey at the end, and once you complete that survey, you will be approved for your credits, and those will be processed for you by AIA New Jersey. The program today, Equity Guide to Advancing Careers, is based on a series of 9 guides that were designed by AIA National to improve the level of equity in the profession. A lot of the content that I will be presenting today come directly from those guides, so you're going to see some slides that have a lot of content on them. I'm not going to be reading those slides to you, but you will have them available to you as a resource to be able to go over in greater detail some sections from the guide. And we also will be sharing anecdotal experiences related to today's topic that will help you to better understand the adaptation of this content into your practice. The particular learning objectives for today, number 1, participants will learn how race and gender factor into the speed at which one moves along one's career pathway. 2, participants will discuss systems and processes that are common obstacles in career paths instead of focusing on what individual employees need to change. Participants will learn the benefits of providing clear written criteria for promotion, and participants will learn the career advancement lattice pathway versus the career advancement ladder pathway. Our first participant is Carla Bonacci. Carla, would you like to give us a little bit of information about yourself?
Sure. Stacey, thank you, first of all, for inviting me to participate with you and Paul. I'm really looking forward to this. Just a brief intro. I've been fortunate to have a career for 37 years with one agency, and for 30 of those years with one location, the World Trade Center, which is essentially a city within a city. And I've been leading the major aspects of design and construction of the World Trade Center from pre-9/11, when it was a complex, to today, post-9/11, as a campus. And also about 10 years into my career, I was asked to chair the Women in Architecture Committee, as women were underrepresented, and we did do some amazing things back then, but I've been thinking back on it once Stacey asked me to talk, and I realized that although we made advances, there's still a lot of work to be done to achieve equity in this profession. So I am looking forward to participating and sharing some of my perspectives and insights as we go through the presentation this evening in terms of challenges and opportunities for women to advance their career in this, wonderful field of design and construction. So let's get going.
Thank you, Carla. Next up, we have Paul Rugarber. Paul is a public speaker that a lot of people at AIA New Jersey might be familiar with. I heard him speak last year at Tri-States up in Albany, and I knew right away that Paul's presentation on office culture was something that I thought would be beneficial to the equity conversation, and Paul agreed to participate. Paul, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you're here with us today?
Sure. Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to talk to everyone. So I do speak about culture, office culture. I run a small firm on the Jersey Shore, and we believe in giving people opportunities and trying to advance people as much as we can, and also making this a fun place to work. When it's a fun place to work, then clients are going to be more entertained and want to be here, and the interaction is much better. The interaction within personnel within the office, even though we're a small office, is much better. And then you're going to get people that want to work with you. whether that be contractors, other employees that want to come in and help you out. So it really, the culture of the office begins everything about how your firm is going to grow, what your reputation, your brand is. And so I like to share that with others, as well as any other insights I have about business. I speak about business things as well. I mentor some other businesses. So I'm always looking to the stuff that I've learned, how can I share it with others and help them to achieve more of what they want to do. So we're about a 5-person firm. We do mostly single family, high-end custom residential homes, along rivers and ocean front. And I enjoy what I do.
Thank you, Paul. And I am Stacey Kliesch. I am currently the chair for the AIA New Jersey Equity Committee. We've only been in existence for 2 years. I'm the founder of this committee, and AIA New Jersey has made it a priority to start this conversation, and we've taken it pretty seriously. So last year we made a commitment to a 9-part series, each covering one of the equity guides from National. This is the 7th in that series. We have one coming up in September and another in October. And tomorrow night, we will begin another 6-part series, specifically on the African-American perspective. So you're also welcome and invited to join us for that. So let's get right into today's program on career advancement. To tell you a little bit about the National Equity Guides, architecture has a reputation and some reality in being an old white man's profession. And although we have a very, very dynamic, diverse population in school, it hasn't translated as well into further down the line in the profession. So the equity guides were developed by National to start to understand and investigate how these things can be changed and offering some best practices. The goal of the Equity and Architecture Committee in New Jersey is, one, to try to open up this dialogue. We have a very robust population that find the conversation about equity and architecture to be taboo. They feel that AIA doesn't need to get involved in this, that there aren't, everybody's welcome to choose the career that they want, and everybody's welcome to have an equal experience in the office. And so why are we even talking about this? So the reality is that there is a large population of people that leave the profession in their 20s on their path to licensure for a variety of reasons. And it's something that the profession should take a look at. So one of the goals of the Equity Committee in New Jersey is to create bridges instead of walls. So there are some people that talk about this topic and it puts up a wall, and there are firms that say, it's not me, I'm not the one creating the barrier, and we're doing the right thing and everything's fine. But you have a population that is saying, hey, from my perspective, I'm not feeling that same way. So one of our goals is for everyone to collectively have this conversation without anybody feeling guilty or without anybody feeling that there's a blame game going on, but instead learning what best practices are working to try to combat some of these problems for the next generation and for the current generation. So that's our goal. We want people to feel open and comfortable talking about this and creating bridges so people understand the perspectives of both parties and to close the gap. Something else I want to talk about that's also a priority is that New Jersey in particular has many, many, many very small firms of 3 people, 5 people, 10 people that don't have a ton of room for career advancement because there aren't that many levels in the firm. So it's important for employees to also understand the perspective of the firm. When you're working at a very small firm, there's not always a lot of room for, doing things very far out of the way that the business has been doing it. So we have to collectively work together and see both sides of the coin. All of us have to be working to make a positive experience for the staff, because the staff having a positive experience motivates them to be more productive and beneficial to the firm. So it has to be a symbiotic relationship. And the firm, of course, has the goal of staying productive and efficient to be able to support the staff financially and with benefits and with opportunities. So the two parties have to work together. If the parties feel hostile towards one another, then it's going to be a disaster for both. So one of the goals of our committee, or our primary goal, is to make sure this conversation is comfortable for all parties and that we can freely talk about best practices to improve the situation. So thank you to everybody that's on the call today, because that's a sign to me that you care about this topic and that you're interested in making these bridges. Okay, so the Equity Guide to Advancing Careers, as I said, is Chapter 7 in the National Equity Guides. And there are a few reasons why advancing careers would be important to both the employer and to the employee. So employers that support career development, of course, it helps to increase retention at the firm. It reduces turnover cost of dissatisfied employees leaving the office and having to hire someone new. And it can contribute to the firm diversity. The benefits of having firm diversity is you have multiple viewpoints coming into the design conversation in the office. You have a population in the office that potentially aligns with your client base and can attract different clients than you may have had in the past. Oftentimes clients seek to have a relationship with an architect that reflects their viewpoint, and so having diversity in the office can help a firm to make connections with a larger client base. From the employee's perspective, career progression can be slow due to the complexity of the discipline and the fact that a lot of educational programs might not cover a lot of actual business practice experience while they're in school. There's a long route to licensure in architecture, as we all know, that can be both expensive and time consuming. And there can also be a lack of a clear pathway for employees to understand what goals they need to achieve and what the milestones are to be able to move up in their career. And that's not talking about the AXP requirements, but actually within a firm. You know, what do I need to be doing to get from my first point at the office to move up to become a project manager or a project architect, and so on and so forth. The Guide to Advancing Careers helps us understand that obviously individual performance is going to play a critical role in career progression, but the firm also has a part in that equation, because a lot of aspects of firm culture, firm policy, and management style affect the ability for an employee to move up within a firm. Individual choices and plans can be influenced by both internal and external factors. So every individual has commitments and responsibilities outside of work and commitments and responsibilities inside of work. And those two things have to work in concert with each other successfully in order for that individual to be successful at work and to be able to advance in their career. Equitable policies and impartial support of career development lead to greater choice, flexibility, and growth within individual career paths. And that sometimes is something that is not something that's been traditional in architectural firms. So that's going to be our topic today, to figure out how to navigate those changes. Carla?
Okay, so really advancing a career starts with the career environment, as Stacey was alluding to, and it's really understanding where you currently are, where do you aspire to be, what kind of culture environment is important to you, and to assess that. And there are differences, as Stacey said, in large companies versus small companies, and in public sector versus private sector. And so my experience has primarily for the 37 years been in a large company or public agency, the public sector. And the Port Authority, in terms of culture, in the last 3 years specifically, has focused on training staff to recognize unconscious bias and microaggressions that really impact the work environment and culture. And there's clearly a focus now, and I think it's happening throughout the business sector also, to focus on creating equitable environments and to capture the positive energy of individual employees that bring that to their work. And for us, we've also retained consultants from the American Management Association and other organizations to help us provide better communication, to learn different leadership styles, to in fact broaden the perspectives and skills in our employees. And in the design and construction industry, we are still pretty much a male-dominated culture, and so doing and taking these formal initiatives is really helping us. And so I think, the perspective I bring here tonight is, through my career, I've often been the lone or small number of women. I've experienced these various microaggressions and yet have been able to figure out how to keep going and not let those things get in the way, because of course we all come with our own unconscious bias. And I've seen really over the years improvements in behaviors, and I've seen work culture changes. And so I really believe that getting new energy and new folks into the workplace and harnessing those ideas helps to create these equitable environments that we all want to have to do better in our lives. So with that, Stacey, I turn it back to you.
Thank you. Paul? Paul, you're on mute. Let's see.
Okay.
There you go.
We're good now. Okay, so responsibility I like to talk about, and I believe in taking responsibility for everything that you do in your career path and what we do. So as an employer, I take responsibility for developing my people, because I think that's very important for us to be able to help other people and say, what is it that they're looking for? What is it that I need in my firm, and how can the two work together? And I want to be able to advance people, because if people aren't advancing, if they feel stagnant, then they're not going to stay with you, and they're not going to give you the top work and do well. So to me, when we advance people, when we show them what the clear path is, then everybody's going to win in that transaction. But also taking responsibility goes the other way. And so, when I began my career, I was very focused on what I wanted to do. I wanted to work for a design build firm because I wanted that experience. And so I went out and I pursued firms, researched and I pursued firms that I wanted to work for. And then I went there and I learned as much as I could. So then, okay, I want to learn this much information, and then it's going to be time to move on. So I believe as an employee, you have to be focused about what you want, and then you have to go out and pursue that specifically. So rather than waiting and saying, okay, I'm not getting to where I want to be, do you truly know where you want to be? And are you pursuing that actively by saying, okay, maybe if this isn't it, maybe I need to relocate to a different town, a different state. Maybe I need to relocate to a different firm. Maybe I need to make different networking connections so that I can get to where I want to be ultimately with my career. Because I think we all, our lives are our responsibility, and what we do will affect everything later. So then from the employee, you have to be focused on what you want to do. From an employer, you have to know what the employees want. And so then you can develop that. And then how do we do that? As an employee, it's having specific criteria. So if you're going to get a raise or get a promotion, what are the things that I'm specifically looking for? Skill sets, let's say, or personality traits, or things that can be developed so that people can advance. I always tell people, if you bring me, as far as pay, like I'll pay you $1 million a year if you can bring me $2 million worth of value. So it's not, people look at things differently. They say, oh, I just want to advance to a little bit, but think about your skills and the value you can bring to the marketplace, because ultimately as a business owner, I can make as much money as I want if I can bring enough value to other people. And when I don't bring the value, then I'm not going to be moving up. I'm not going to be getting the clients I want. I'm not going to be happy with what I'm doing. So I think every person, every employee needs to look at their career as their job, as their owning a business, being the CEO of themselves, and they have to approach it that way. And so if you're not getting what you want, then it's your responsibility to go to your employer and say, hey, what specifically do I need to do? How do things work around here? How do I get to where I want to be? And then you can actively pursue it. And maybe where you are isn't the right place. But taking responsibility for currently where you are and where you want to be, rather than just saying, hey, it's not working out, someone else is at fault, blame the system. Take ownership for where you are as an employee and also as an employer. And I think, the whole world benefits from that. So that's my quest here with this. Back to you, Stacey.
Okay. Professional growth. Most architects enter the profession because they are committed to the meaningful work of architecture. They understand that architects influence the built environment, and that has a major effect and impact on communities and civilization. And that's why they seek the profession, to help people and serve people. When architects consistently find themselves not participating in meaningful work at work, it can create kind of a sense of depression over their impact on the bigger picture. So regardless of what types of assignments, even at the very lowest level where employees are doing very basic work when they first join a firm, it's important that they are part of a project team, or if they're only responsible for one small aspect, it's important to have them engaged in the bigger conversation of what that project is doing, so that everybody feels like they are making a meaningful contribution to each project and to the work of the firm and to the community that they're having an influence on. So that's something that can just be a small adjustment for people to see where the element that they're responsible for has an effect and impact on the bigger picture. Influencing architectural design is often considered one of the most important elements of success for an architect. So when studies in the AIA Diversity of the Profession survey show that women often are encouraged to work on more interiors projects, and people of color are often relegated to more production roles, it certainly detracts from those parties feeling like they are influencing the architectural design and having an impact on that meaningful work. So it is something that we need to look at. I also want to mention too that when we talk about equity, some of the statistics that are included today from National do focus on women's positions or people of color, but equity is important to consider for anyone that feels like they're part of the marginalized community instead of the primary community. So all aspects of people that feel like they're not having that opportunity to be influential and meaningful are going to be the ones that we're considering in this discussion. So some elements that need to be considered are situations where we can have a positive impact on people who are feeling that they are progressing more slowly in their work experience, that they're having a lack of recognition or dissatisfaction in their career impact. And in some instances, those can actually lead towards people leaving the profession. Achieving work-life integration. So work-life balance is something that we hear a lot about lately. And particularly since COVID has happened and we now have people who have a complete blur between their work life and their home life, and impact of trying to support your children at school while you're also working and managing what's going on. It's even more important that we take a look at a result-based analysis of what we're achieving rather than the path that we're taking, because paths are becoming so blurred right now. And this is something that's been talked about for a while in the industry, but it's really come to light in these last few months since people have been working from home as a requirement. So work-life integration is achieving a satisfying balance between the time at work and the time outside of work. And that doesn't just mean, hey, I want more time to go ride my bike. It could mean that, but it also means that people need to have some predictability in what's going on at work and what's going on outside of work in order for them to feel organized and successful. So once the line between the two becomes blurred, it creates a lot of confusion. When you're at work, you feel like you're not focusing on what you need to at home, and when you're at home, you feel like you're not focusing on work because the line between the two is not clearly delineated. So some critical factors to improving this problem are having a predictable number of expected hours at work. And that doesn't mean that sometimes deadlines don't creep up, but for those hours to be predictable, firm management has to carefully look at the predictability of jobs. So when they start to schedule a job and assemble the team that's going to be working on that job, they should be assigning the appropriate people and appropriate number of people. So appropriate skill set and appropriate number of people onto each assignments to be able to manage that job in a normal workday setting. So you're not constantly running against crazy deadlines and people working unbearable hours. So that's an office management tool that needs to be adjusted to keep that in check. A reliable schedule of when time off will occur. So again, sometimes in the architectural industry, crazy deadlines occur and you may have to come in on a weekend or you may have to have some crazy hours, but it's very important for the employee and the employer to establish a reliable schedule. The employee must be responsible for showing up on time and staying until the time that they are committed to. And the employer also should be held to those expectations. So if the employee knows their work day is from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m., for the most part, they should be able to work those hours and know that they can drop off their child or take care of their parent or go to the gym or whatever it is that they need to do outside of work in a timely fashion and not feel stress and anxiety over not being able to meet those goals also. And the last one is the ability to fully disconnect from work when they are off work. So now, especially where we have so many ways of being in communication with each other, whether it's texting or cell phone or email or, all now even like 10 kinds of social media messages coming at us. It's very important for people to be able to log off at some point. And firms should make very clear what their communication expectations are with their staff. And employees should also have a very clear understanding of how and when their employer needs to be in contact with them so that both parties understand what the expectations are and there can be success and clear understanding there. So a lot of times when expectations aren't clearly communicated, that's when all of these problems occur. Because the employer has one expectation that hasn't been communicated and the employee has another expectation that hasn't been communicated. So having an excellent network in the office to be able to discuss those things and communicate expectations is what creates successful work-life integration. Carla.
So just thinking back on what Paul mentioned and I mentioned about knowing your environment and where you are and is it right for you. You know, as we move through life, and Stacey mentioned this, our path is not always clear. And for me, I popped up on this slide, the 5 aspects of life that I think shift in proportion to where you are in your life. So whether it's family, professional performance, your friends, your community involvement, or your career development, it seems that, and these things change when you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and oops, I just turned 60, but it's important to know that they shift in proportion to where you are and the adjustments are constant, and so the path isn't always clear. I think what's important is how you go about managing those pinch points. Pinch points are the times when something big and new gets added into the equation and everything else has to get rebalance, to keep harmony, and you're trying to figure out how to do it all. And one story for me, of course, is after 90, pre-bombing, the World Trade Center work was all consuming, actually, after both tragedies, and I could focus all of my time. And then we decided to have children when life stabilized, but all of a sudden I had to figure out how I was going to manage that with child care and what was the right thing for me and our family. And these are big decisions for women who want to continue working, whether it's full-time or part-time. How are you going to take care of your children? So whether it's dropping them off at daycare, or for me and my husband, we decided that an au pair was the right choice for us. I felt it was very important to have someone in the house so that I knew them, they knew the kids, and it would help my flow work much better. And of course, economics is a big factor too, that you have to balance when you're trying to make all these decisions about what's right. And then in terms of the culture and the business that you work in, for me, back in 95, I couldn't take maternity leave, and the Family Medical Leave Act was just a new thing. And again, I'm in a male-dominated environment, so I was very careful about how I rolled this out, that I would be taking just a few weeks off, managing vacation and family leave to make this work and not lose face time with the people that I worked with. Now today, things are a little different. We're in COVID now. We only see each other remotely. I actually have 25 people who work for me, and I think because of my perspective, I'd like to feel that I'm better able to work with them as they are, as Stacey said, living their life and trying to work. The dog's barking, you're in a meeting, all of these things are fully integrated, and it's very difficult to manage. So yes, the clearer your rules can be, the easier it can be, but getting everybody on board to have the same rules, it is in fact a challenge, and it's, I think, sometimes easier said than done. I still have bosses that'll call me at 8 a.m. The cell phone rules our life. We get a message, we feel we have to respond, and we all have the same situations, and trying to work on it, I really feel is important. So again, know your environment, know your bosses, and be open and clear with what's important for you.
Thank you. Okay, supporting career pathways equitably. Some of the important things that a firm should consider is that every individual employee has different elements that are affecting their career path. So they have their unique goals that they are hoping to achieve in their career, but they also have all kinds of other elements that are having an influence on their experience. So those could include inter-office relationships, and I don't mean dating somebody, but just, the politics of the office. It could be influenced by changes in the economy, changes in politics, or trends in the architectural profession or in the marketplace, as well as issues related to all the different things and life stages that the employee may be going through. So I know for myself, the path that I thought I was going to be on when I was 20 years old changed when I was 25, changed when I was 30, and then it started changing even faster. So the expectations of what I was going to be able to achieve and when I would be able to achieve it fluctuates. So you have your intended path, but then you have all the other things that come into play that change that path, that the employer needs to always be staying in the loop and keeping communication open with the employee. And the same thing happens at a firm. The firm has expectations for where the firm is going to go over the course of a year or longer. And that also changes based on the marketplace, based on politics, based on pandemics and all the other things that we know as firm owners has an effect on us. So the path of the firm changes, the path of the employee changes, and that's why flexibility and communication are both very important to make sure that everyone stays on track with what the expectations are for success. A focus on results rather than a focus on hours is a very important way to improve equity in a firm. So if the employee knows what the firm's expectations are from a results perspective, and the firm allows some flexibility in how the employee goes about achieving those results, first of all, it empowers the employee to have control over the elements that make the path function for them as an individual. And it also ensures that the firm is going to be seeing those results happening across the board for their employees. So people can spend many, many unproductive hours at work, but what is the value to anyone? That's ineffective for the employee, and it's also ineffective for the firm. So focusing on the results expected rather than the hours expected is going to be a win-win for all parties concerned. But it's definitely an adjustment from the traditional way that we envision the career pathway. Being open-minded to career pathway deviation, if the results remain the same, is a key to success for everyone. Okay, Carla.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about non-traditional career because that's what I've done over my lifetime. I have been practiced as an architect since those early days of being an architect and facility architect. So it's been about 30 years, but I'm still using my architectural skills every day, and I get to shape the projects and build them, but I don't draw them. So I want you to all know there are wonderful opportunities within non-traditional careers. For me, the realization that I wanted to be on the decision-making side of activities that owners are responsible for was key. And I really felt that's where I could help architecture and the quality of the built environments the best. And also I had an interest in real estate development. And so of course, as an owner and the owner of the World Trade Center, I've had great opportunities to put my imprint on that photograph that you're seeing there. And so I've gotten to actually work from, we used to use the term cradle to grave. I'm not sure it's good to say that anymore, but from the beginning of a project, working with design teams, working through procurement, managing construction managers, turning it over to the end user. All of that are the things that folks that work in non-traditional careers get to see and do. And in terms of the Port Authority and other large companies and agencies, we have formal systems that really allow one to ladder and lattice, in an organized way without penalty. And they've enabled people to weave careers based on their individual goals and what they want to develop. The other thing that it effectively allows people to pursue cross-functional experiences, right? So you're an architect, but you'd like to manage a design team, or maybe you'd like to learn the construction management field. Maybe you're interested in procurement and how they actually go about and put documents out on the street and manage a bidding process. And how do you do that so that you actually get the quality of the bidders and the quality of the product that you want? All these things are so critical to what one ends up seeing at the end of the day. And so I think, I have another example, because not everybody can be the design architect in the architectural firm, right? So large companies can give you stability or stardom. How do you want to manage that? Another example is my husband, who was a traditional architect for most of his career, and 3 years ago joined a construction management firm and was able to bring that architectural experience into the construction management field to even help them get better bids and quality. And now, you know, he's back on the architectural and the design build environment, and he gets to merge all of that together, because design build is what's hot today in governmental work. Maybe it's going to grow that way in commercial work, but clearly in government, design build, diversity, inclusion, getting the smaller MWBE, DBE firms involved, that's really where our work is headed. And so there are many opportunities out there too, for those of you who like smaller projects or a smaller role in a bigger project, to go ahead and get involved with that work. And that's really what I wanted to promote today, that you can ladder and lattice and weave your career the way you want, as long as you think about it and find something that you're really passionate about. So Stacey's back to you.
Okay. So one of the ways that firms and employees can have an excellent dynamic between the two as we move through career advancement are circumstances where the firm has a very clear criteria for promotion. So that requires the firm to define what their expectations are, what milestones employees are supposed to be reaching between each review, and in order to climb up the ladder at that firm. Surveys have indicated that even within individual firms, that depending on which firm principal or manager you speak to, they have different priorities of what they're looking for in who they're going to advance. So for the firm to collectively decide what are the criteria, maybe it's a little bit of what each of those managers is expecting, but the firm has to create the guidelines for what that promotional criteria is. And when employees have a very clear picture of the path that they need to take to be able to reach those goals for promotion, first of all, it allows them to be productive. They know that the work they're doing is helping them to move forward. And sometimes employees are assigned things that feel like they're outside of the path to promotion, whether they're doing you know, code research or researching materials, or you know, doing preparation drawings for presentations. It's important for employees to realize how all of those elements are part of the career path, and they strengthen their ability to perform at the higher level, and that not everybody is going to be working along one straight line. The benefit there is that the employee has an understanding of what they need to do to move forward, and the employer is going to benefit by having the employees reaching those milestones. So if the employees don't know what the expected milestones are, then the chances of them achieving those milestones are very slim. And then you end up with disgruntled employees because they don't understand what they're supposed to be doing to make the firm happy. And the firm is unhappy because the employees are not achieving the goals that were expected. So by creating a very clear promotional criteria, it assists both parties in being more successful. Well, I just talked about this whole thing. Let's see if I missed anything. Oh, yes, here's an important one. So if the promotion criteria is results-based, it allows for people to bring with them the experiences that they, you know, sometimes somebody's had a really fabulous experience at a prior firm, and they bring it into their new firm, and the new firm doesn't understand how that might benefit their firm, a practice that they haven't instituted before. But if the firm criteria is results-based, it allows for flexibility in the method that the work is performed. And so that can benefit the firm for so many different reasons. First of all, it empowers the employees to be bringing something fresh and new to the firm. It empowers the team to be working under circumstances that allow for communication and opportunity to integrate in creating those results from a different path that the firm may have taken previously. And managers have the obvious benchmarks that they're going to be evaluating their staff against when they're having their reviews. And then the employers know that everybody in the firm is going to be working up towards those benchmarks. Supporting networks. Minority sectors have consistently reported feeling unsupported by professional networks in the traditional architectural firm. So that is, and when I say minority, I'm talking about anybody that's outside of the general mainstream. So architecture has a very traditional mainstream path, and that network is very, very supportive of people who act the same way that the network acts. So one of the challenges there is people who are not feeling that they're supported by a network inside or outside of the firm start to feel that the other people around them have a advantage over them, even if they're all performing the same thing in the same way. So if people are not feeling that there's a camaraderie around them, whether it's a social professional network or whether it's a training and development professional network, or it's, you know, inviting somebody to go for a walk every day at lunch, or eating lunch together, or you know, socializing outside of work. All of these things are elements that create the support network. So particularly if we have people who maybe come from, I don't want to keep targeting parents, but if, let's say, for example, you have a network of people that always socialize after work, and you have some people in the office that can never socialize after work because they have childcare requirements or they have other responsibilities that they need to tend to after work, then it creates a situation where those parties feel, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to be equal to the people who have that support network of the other people in the office. So it's important for the firm to look at, well, you know, all of these people are doing a great job for the 8 hours a day that they're here performing, but some of them are getting a little leg up because they're also able to get network support because they're building camaraderie outside of those traditional 8 hours. So how do we build upon that experience to make a more equitable relationship for everybody in the firm? Firms that provide traditional mentorship and atypical mentorship are going to be in a situation that everyone in the firm will feel like they're receiving professional development both inside and outside of the office. So that allows for a more equitable experience for everybody involved. Staff that are supported by that professional network feel that they're not alone swimming against the tide towards advancement, but they feel that other people here care about my success at work, and they care about my ability to be an important part of this community at my firm. And if nothing else, even if they're not able to get training or professional advancement from that network, the feeling that they are part of a group and that people care about their success and their happiness at work is something that fuels them to give back to their community. So again, creates that symbiotic relationship. The firm shows that they care for the employee, and then the employee will therefore care for the firm because you know, someone is interested in their happiness, well-being, and success as a staff member. Most job openings, promotions, and even project assignments happen by word of mouth. Somebody hears of an opportunity available and they say, hey, I know somebody who would be perfect for that opportunity. So if an employee is not part of any network, then the likelihood of them being moved forward in a circumstance like that is very slim. So it's important for the firm to even assign mentors when employees first come on, and it's important to have a peer mentor, someone who's doing the same exact thing that you're supposed to be doing, so that they have someone that's not intimidating for them to be able to say, hey, you know, where do I pick up my timesheet? What am I supposed, you know, where do I store my lunch? What are the expectations for parking? Somebody that they feel comfortable and not intimidated to communicate with, as well as having a network of mentors that are at a management level and up. So people know that they have someone at an upper level that's caring for and cultivating their advancement. So for the firm to say, hey, middle managers, we're going to assign each of you 3 mentees that you will be responsible for meeting with on a regular basis and cultivating experience with, as well as having some responsibility for their career advancement. So we expect you to stay in touch with what's going on with them inside and outside of work. If they're having relationship issues in the office, or they're having problems with a client, or they're having problems outside of work, for those lines of communication to be open and those exchanges being made on a regular basis for those employees to know that they're part of a support network. Okay. Carla.
I wanted to say one thing about promotion criteria, again, being in a large agency, and I'm actually not familiar with what smaller companies do, but know that for us, we have a formal performance review document that's prepared at the start of every year with about 6 objectives. It's our results oriented, and we also look at development planning. So we work with each employee to have them identify what their aspirations are, so that we can understand their goals and help them get where they want to be. And then a recent objective we've all added is exactly diversity and inclusion, which speaks to this notion of mentors and training and getting out there and creating a network to help, rebuild a culture in an organization, or a culture within yourself, actually. So on this slide, my intent was to really talk about the importance of professional networks, and especially the AIA, and how if you get involved, you can help to effectuate change and policy. And that's really the only way one creates a more equitable environment and an approach to our profession. And again, I said, when I was about 10 years into my career and I chaired the Women in Architecture Committee, and I popped up on the screen this brochure you can't read, but it was the idea that even back then in the early 90s, we wanted to create a forum for women to have it, spend a day and talk about all the current issues of the day. And this program was for women, about women. Sorry, I'm not trying to insult the men in the audience, but just to understand, at a certain point in time when women felt underrepresented, we wanted to create ways to give them more exposure. And so I do see that we've made changes over the years. The percentages of women who are licensed have improved. I think, there's a further improvement that we can look to achieve. They say out there in the industry, if you have about 40% diversity within your cohort, that's where you really start to see change and see equity. And so this is really to say to all of you, you need to get invested in your professional network and reach out to people, develop friends. The Girl Scout motto, make new friends, keep the old. I think that's really important throughout your career. And then you can look for informal mentors, formal mentors, and those other aspects to help you achieve what you want to achieve out of your career and your overall life. I turn it back to you, Stacey.
Thank you. We have a question from one of the viewers asking, what recommendations do we have for multi-level mentorship networks in a small firm that's only maybe 4 or 5 people? So in that case, I would say it's important, if possible, for an employee to assign the individual employee a buddy, shall I say. So that's their peer mentor, someone who is performing a similar work responsibility and is at a similar professional level, if that person exists. And if not, then the closest possible person. So if you're a very small firm, there may be no one at that same exact level, but assign the next closest person. And really, at some point, everyone in the whole firm is a mentor to each other, because, we all There are going to be mentors that evolve naturally, people that we find a personal relationship with and have an easy time speaking with them and being vulnerable with them. So when you're talking to your mentor, there's a certain amount of vulnerability that's expected, because you need to talk about things that are weaknesses or challenges and know that you have the confidence of that mentor in giving you good advice. And perhaps, you know, when you create that vulnerability by admitting something that you're struggling with, you want to be able to trust that your mentor is going to be a reliable resource to you. So when you are at a small firm, it's the principal's responsibility to maybe fill a variety of those roles, but if at all possible, identify at least one other employee that the staff member can go to as either a peer mentor or an intermediate mentor, so that they, you know, they may not always be confident speaking to the principal about something that they're feeling vulnerable about. They might feel like the principal's got much more important things to deal with, and so they just sweep it under the rug until that problem compounds and compounds, and you know, too much time is dragged on without it getting resolved. So even as a small firm, you maybe aren't going to have 3 levels of mentorship, but hopefully you can identify at least 2 people that can serve as a mentor. I also have seen very small firms where the employer would encourage that employee to meet employees from other similar firms. One of the wonderful things in the architecture world is we seem to have camaraderie even with our competition, because luckily, right now especially, there's enough work that people can support their competitors, and so that's a good place where people can find support relationships also with mentors from outside of the firm. So it's not out of the question to seek that or for an employer to recommend that. And that's something that we even see in the AXP process. So that may be a professor from school or a previous employer or a previous coworker that maintains a position as your mentor throughout the profession, even if they're not at your firm. But it can be someone that you can be truthful and vulnerable with to share some of the issues that you're having. And they also become your professional network. So they support you in bringing to your attention ideas and opportunities that may be within your firm, outside of the firm, and relate to a variety of different levels of development, even if they're not suggestions of leaving your firm, but they can just be a support system as you're learning about things. I know now on social media, there's Next Architects, there is Entree Architects, there are the Women's Architectural Collaborative, so many different places for people to network and branch out and make connections and make relationships and share ideas and ask questions without feeling stupid. That I even think 5 years ago, when those kinds of networks were not so readily available for people to be able to ask those questions, and people, you know, those became longer term stumbling blocks. The questions that I see now on social media relate to work-life balance. They relate to progress in the office. You know, oh, I've gone to 3 reviews and I haven't gotten a raise yet, and they're not giving me any information on what I need to do to move up, and I just feel stuck. I don't know what to do. So people have a sounding board and a place to communicate, and those networks can come from lots of different places. So even if you're a small firm, you can build that network within the firm and outside of the firm. And as a small firm owner, encourage your employees to become involved in these other networks. Introduce them to these resources that are available to them within the American Institute of Architects chapter locally, within the local architectural college community, within the architectural social media community. So there are lots of opportunities available even for small firms to get that support. And I know now sole practitioners are feeling more supported than ever because of all these networks that are available. So that's a solution that I would encourage.
Stacey, if I
I've
can,
answered your question.
Stacey, can I chime in there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I agree with everything you said, and I want to add a few things. So some of the best mentors that I've had have been other architects, you know, similar to what I'm doing in the area that I've become friends with. and we'll sit down, once a month for lunch, and we'll talk about things. And it opens up a whole different world of things that, maybe even if they're similar firms, they just have different ways of doing things. They have different networking groups that they go to. They have different contacts, and they look at problems differently. So I think when you're looking for a mentor, you can look within the profession and say, okay, who do I admire? Who would I want to speak to? And then figure out, how do you connect with that person? So if you're not connected to them now, what do you need to do in order to get connected with them? But you also can't, if you develop a friendship, that's good, but you can't be a pest and say like, hey, will you mentor me? But I would start it simple by, asking someone a question. I think most people are very willing to help someone else, but keep it, small chunks of time. Maybe just email them a question, maybe follow them on social media and comment on things to start that relationship. And then you can gradually grow that a little bit. But it doesn't just start as a, hey, will you be my mentor? And I need, an hour a week with you so that I can learn something. So you have to be, I think, realistic in what your goals are for that. And then it's up to you to actively pursue that and say, okay, what do I need to do to get that person to be able to help me? And maybe the ones you pursue don't always work. Maybe you have to go to a different one. Or even I've learned from a lot of people that are outside of the world of architecture, that are in different businesses. Like joining Toastmasters is a great thing. One, it helps you with public speaking. And then it also opens you up to a world of other people that want to get better at something the same way you do. So now you have similar minded people that you can talk with, network with. And maybe one of those people, I actually met a great guy at a Toastmasters I was president of here. And we're still friends and we still talk, and he's like a little mentor to me. But it's great to have people outside the industry that you can talk to, because you get a different look at things. But I think keeping the expectations from a mentee's point of view of, I don't want to take up a lot of their time, but I am looking for input. And then certainly when they give you input, follow it. And then, when next time you meet with them or next time you're able to talk to them, report back and say, hey, you know what, you mentioned this, I thought that was great, this is what I did, and then look for additional learning things. So I think that helps people are willing to help people that help themselves. So if you can show that, hey, I'm eager, I'm listening to you, I like what you're saying, people are much more willing to help you over and over.
Great, Paul, thank you. We have another comment from a participant that I'd like to share. This person has mentioned that COVID has made it possible for the party to finally network because everything has been moved online. So after 20 years in the industry, they have never found a mentor that could relate to what their particular life and career path and career goals were. And it's so important for your network and your mentor to be able to understand what your particular career path and goals are, because of all of the outside factors that influence that. So Bretta, I'm not sure what you were saying exactly about how your network has improved since things have moved online, but I do want to say that I just last night, when I was talking with another colleague about tonight's presentation, they said that they work for a multi-office firm, and the employees that work in the branch offices always feel like the people at the head office are in the know of everything, because they're, walking around day to day with the people who are making decisions. And the branch managers are just following the rules of the primary office, and the staff at the branches feel completely like so far removed from having any influence on anything that's going on that it can be a challenge for them to feel connected. But now that everybody is working remotely in these offices, it's really leveled the playing field. Everyone is receiving communications at the same time as each other. People have equal opportunity to participate in meetings and information sessions, because everyone is participating in a similar fashion to what we're doing in this seminar today. And so it has leveled things out and created a feeling of equity and balance for a lot of those people who were in physical remote locations, and now it's kind of equalized itself by bringing things online. So it's another little silver lining that we may not have expected before, and it's something important to think about as we transfer back to some offices going to a more traditional arrangement. How do we continue to support those things that have been positive changes that have happened through the work from home? Okay, next up, we're going to talk about the career ladder versus the career lattice. So traditional career ladder advancement rely on hierarchy and power as drivers up the career ladder. Usually they had a single career path. The path was controlled by the leaders of the firm, and the priorities definitely emphasized work over a work-life balance. So in many of those situations, it would really be taboo to even talk about what was going on outside of work, because that was not as important as what was going on at work. And the latter scenario assumes that things stay pretty consistent. So from the time that the employee is hired and what their availability and capabilities were at that time, that they would remain constant or even grow, with the emphasis being on work priority. And success is measured in that model by how similarly staff are able to stay on that path. So whatever that single career path is, the most successful people are the ones that can follow that model and stay on that path. So whether that's you know, hours put in at the office, or habits and hobbies, and actual practice methods. So people who were able to toe the line and to remain similarly along that path were people that remained the most successful in the latter career path form. The career lattice allows for a look at varied pace, workload, work location, and work times to change over the course of a career. So for example, I know there were circumstances where, you know, people know at 25-year-olds what their professional goals may be over the next years. And they know they're going to need time to study for the exam, or to maybe get a master's degree, or start a family, or get married, or whatever their work-life balance aspirations are. And so it's not to say that an employee that has any aspirations outside of finishing the project and getting their timesheet submitted on time, you know, any other aspiration that distracts you from that is not productive for the firm. It's unrealistic. You wouldn't even want to have employees that had no aspirations other than just getting their projects done, because having a rich culture in the office is related to having happy, diverse population that are fulfilling their life goals, and their career goals are part of their life goals. So it's important to understand all the different aspects that go into making a successful employee by integrating those elements in that lattice kind of environment. So the lattice, rather than the ladder, is developed by the individual and the leader together, related to what their particular goals are. Like an employee might say, you know, I need to have flexible time because of other commitments I have in my life, but I also am willing to take work home with me, or, you know, creating those circumstances that are not typical for every single employee. The lattice focuses on a results-based incremental measuring system rather than an hours-based system. And it also looks at mass career customization. So mass career customization is one example of a lattice system that allows for a situation where every employee feels that any customization that they need to request in their work plan is not something that's a special cater accommodation that they've been given by the firm. So for example, let's say at a firm that traditionally follows a career ladder, we have 1 or 2 employees that say, hey, I need to ask for a special accommodation. So I need to work from home on Fridays, or I need to leave every day at 5 o'clock to be able to go to physical therapy, or, you know, whatever their accommodation is. So once it's considered to be an accommodation, then all the other employees that are following the career ladder are like, oh, what's up with this? This person's getting special treatment. And, you know, that's not fair that I have to follow the career ladder and they're doing something different and it's still acceptable by the firm. And that creates animosity between the staff members and a hostile environment. And eventually the people on the ladder will probably drive out the person who has asked for the accommodation because they feel guilty or embarrassed, and the whole thing just explodes. So while the firm thinks they're doing the right thing in providing these accommodations to the employee who asked for it, it creates a microaggression inside the firm, which is really detrimental to the health of the office culture. So what is better is when new employees are hired to start to ask questions as a firm leader. What are your goals and aspirations at the office and outside of the office? What other plans do you have? And let's start to build that into each employee's unique career lattice. So we understand there are going to be times when you can make a larger commitment to work because you are not trying to achieve these things outside of the office. And there may be times where you need to go down to part-time, or you need to have flex time, or you need to work from home, or whatever the circumstances are, to be able to meet all those different varieties of work-life balance initiatives that create a vibrant population in the office. So if the mentality is that there's only one way to be successful at our firm and it's following this same ladder, you are going to find yourself not attracting a rich population. You're going to be attracting really only the same people that that come from that cookie cutter mindset, or are willing to kowtow to that mentality. A much healthier way of being able to have a rich environment is by allowing for that lattice that allows every new employee to be able to take a look at the rich experiences that they're going to be having inside and outside of work over the next years that they are an employee with the firm. So I just wanted to just close to say that mass career customization means that every single employee is invited to take a look at what's unique, because every employee does have things that are unique, even if they feel intimidated to maybe admit it to begin with. You know, whether they're training for a triathlon, or they're, you know, they have aspirations to travel and they want to build in big chunks of vacation every year, whatever that is. A healthy firm environment will have your mentor and review board discussing those kinds of experiences of how you would like to enrich your life over time, and build those things into your career customization plan. And that allows everyone to feel that it's normal to have a work-life balance, and that it's acceptable to be enriching your life with things other than what's going on at work. Because if you feel that you're getting that support and encouragement on your life, it makes you more dynamic and energized to be productive and a valuable part of the office environment. Every once in a while, the slides won't advance. I don't know what that is. Okay. Access to training and development. So within a firm, sometimes those support networks provide training and development indirectly or unofficially, shall I say, and it creates a feeling of inequity within the office. So it's important for the firm to identify areas of training and development that each unique employee could benefit from, and have that be part of their work plan for the year. So a firm can maybe pay for them to go to take a training course, or provide them with training software that's individual to one employee, to be able to advance and diversify how that employee is learning, and that becomes a skill that that employee can add to their resume. And it also becomes a benefit to the firm because that employee then has more capability in giving back to the firm once they've been trained and developed. And the training and development is does need to be unique to each employee because we all come from a different background. So when employees come in and present their resume, everyone has a unique skill set that they bring to the table. And the firm has unique skills that are required to complete all the diverse tasks that are involved in running an architectural firm. So having access to training and development that is considered on an ongoing basis. Was that training and development that you completed valuable? Were you able to bring something new to the firm after having completed that training and development? And how did everybody, the individual and the firm, benefit from having that experience? And then you need to revisit on a regular basis. At every single level of the profession, people can benefit from training and development, whether it's public speaking training, whether it's a code review course, whether it's learning Revit and you hadn't come, you weren't producing Revit work previously, or learning about a new project type. Maybe you have come to the firm only with experience in schoolwork, and now you're going to have training and development in or outside of the office to train you on a new project type. Firms are smart to incorporate training into their regular day-to-day office environment. So one practice that I heard that I thought was really great is the principal of the firm, after going through their annual reviews, will say to an employee, 3 months from now, I would like you to present a lunch and learn to the rest of the firm on reflected ceiling plans. So between now and the date that you're assigned, I want you to amp up your knowledge of reflected ceiling plans, and then you're going to do a lunch and learn for the rest of the office on the subject. Sometimes it's a topic that the employee is already excelling in. So the benefit there is they get to feel the opportunity of being an expert in something. Even, sometimes the newest employee may have a talent or an area of expertise that they learned at another firm that is unique to your firm, and they can bring that to the whole office. And think of that boost that it provides to that employee, that emotional boost to know, I'm going to be presenting something new. And that training and development becomes part of the whole office experience, but also gives the employee an opportunity to hone their presentation skills, which we all know is very important whether you're presenting to a client or presenting to a board. So very valuable to employees and employers.
Stacey, can I hop on that too for a second?
Yes, Paul. Let's jump to Paul for a second.
So talking about the training, and I'm a firm believer in that, we're in control of our own destiny. So if your employer does not offer you the training that you think you should be getting, there's no reason that you can't go out and get it yourself, especially with now everything being online. There's no reason you can't watch a YouTube video, talk to a mentor, talk to someone else, but you should be able to get whatever training you think is going to ultimately help your career. So if you're waiting for your employer, well, they haven't taught me about that, or they haven't trained me in Revit. If you believe that Revit is something that's going to help your career, then you should be learning that. And if you have to do that at night on your own time, if you have to pay for a course or you have to take time off from work in order to do that, that's your responsibility to do, to make sure that your advancement, yourself as your career, that you're doing everything you can to get to where you want to go ultimately, because don't ever let someone else be in control of your destiny. So take the bull by the horns there and do what you have to do to get to where you want to go with it. And then, as an employer, I feel it's my responsibility to develop my people and see what are their skill sets, what do they want to learn, what do they excel at, how can I help them? But ultimately, it's their life, right? So they have to be in control of that. If they don't like what I'm providing them, then go work for another firm or learn things yourself, so that when you do decide to switch firms, now you're much more valuable and you can command a higher dollar because, hey, I know Revit, or I know project integration of this, or I know these other systems, and I can become more valuable to you. So training we as employers should be providing the necessary training, but if we don't, we as an employee have to do what is best for us in order to get that.
Paul, I'm going to also add to that, once an employee knows what those milestones for career advancement are, it's very, very important and valuable for that employee to be proactive on their own all the time to be reaching those goals. So it shouldn't be expected that they're going to be nudged along to reach those milestones. It's the onus is on the employee, once that information is made available to them, to make sure they continue to grow and expand and cultivate the contribution they make to the firm to be able to reach those milestones. And if they don't reach the milestones, then, you know, that's something to be discussed in the review, but the employee certainly can seek support from any of these networks that we've talked about to be able to achieve those opportunities through training and development. So that's a really important point. Also, sometimes, especially working at small firms, sometimes a firm hasn't adopted a particular technology. And if you work there for 10 years and never learn whatever the new technology is that other firms are learning, first of all, it could be a detriment to your firm. So maybe your firm's not even aware of what opportunity could be afforded them if everybody trained in this new technology or whatever the case is. But certainly it's going to be a detriment to you when you do try to move on to something else, because career advancement isn't only during your time at that firm. Career advancement is over your whole career. So you have to be setting your individual career advancement goals and make sure that you continue to strive to reach those goals and find whatever support network you need to be able to help you through that. Because at every level, you know, sometimes I hear people say, hey, I've been in the business for 30 years, but I've now been dumbstruck by a scenario that I've never encountered before. So how do I get over this hurdle? So you can seek the proper training and development to help you through that, whether it's asking within your network, finding coursework to help support you, taking classes at community colleges or online to find that support. But that's always another really important way to wow your employer when you can bring to the table something new that maybe hasn't even been mentioned before in the office. So great advice, Paul. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, Carla, you're up.
So just along the lines of what Stacey and Paul have been saying, you know, my experience, you have a responsibility to cultivate yourself and to learn by doing, which means you have to find new things, new skills, and there are many ways to do it, not to repeat what everyone said, but whether there's Ron Blank, where you can have online learning, 1-hour sessions, Red Vector, the Lunch and Learns, and we do that a lot in our office to give people the opportunity to share what they're learning. I would also recommend that you find supportive managers that are going to invest in you and want to help you, but you've got to really be intrinsically motivated. I think, you know, speaking from a position of leadership and transitioning obviously in early years from individual contributor to now building teams, I have an expectation in order to meet the responsibilities that we have, to have people who are motivated and want to try new things and bring new ideas to the table. And I think that's a really important part for those of us who are leaders, that we actually try to build diverse teams. And you do that by knowing who your staff are and knowing what they offer and knowing where their potential is. And I popped up on the slides, you know, the top one is me with a bunch of men except for Krista, and we built Liberty Park, and it was, you know, bringing together all these diverse guys to handle the key issues during construction with all the changes that occur during design. And the bottom photo is really because I'm a woman, I've spent a lot of time giving opportunities to other women. And this is a portion of my group several years ago, you know, during the ebbs and flows of design and construction, our, you know, diversity count rises up and down in my group of 30 people. But, you know, I do really work to give opportunities to those women who really want to step up and try new and different things and learn. And I think that's really what we were all trying to say, that there is a self-responsibility here. We can't teach you everything. No one taught me. I just went out and figured out what I needed to know and made sure I spoke to people and learned what I didn't know. So I'm just recommending, I think we're all recommending that the more eager you are, you will be seen, you will be noticed, your value will be appreciated. So don't be shy. That's it for me.
Thank you. Why does advancing careers matter? So all of the guides to equity in the profession relate to 4 different levels. So the individual level, the firm level, the professional level, and the global level. So we've come to the point where we're going to take a look at why we would be focusing on moving these things forward. So from an individual perspective, there is the health, happiness, and feeling of being an impactful contributor to the firm when you are feeling positively supported in your career advancement. So it doesn't mean that a new employee is going to be shooting up to rival the principal around the corner, but that the employee feels that they are moving forward in what their experience is going to be at the firm, and that the firm cares about them learning something new and having value and a positive experience at the firm. For the managers, when we have a clear path for career advancement, managers know that the people that they have reporting to them have an understanding of what the expectations are and how they are going to be moving through the company. So it makes the management position a little bit easier because the expectations are clearly communicated from the higher ups. So different staff members don't feel like one manager over another is giving priority. Everybody has the same information available to them, and also gives them an opportunity. Like maybe you're reporting to one project architect, but you may have a mentor from a different group at the firm, or a mentor at a different level of the firm. So you have multiple places that you are communicating. It helps with planning projects and having an awareness of what expectations are on a project, whether it's with scheduling or whether it's assigning a particular project type to a particular individual. So when our advanced career communication is open, managers have a better understanding of how to funnel work through the office and what the expectations are going to be in keeping a project successful. The results orientation, or focusing on results, allows for the manager to be a little bit more dynamic in the way that they can move work through. It doesn't have to follow the traditional path as long as the results are meeting or exceeding what the expectations are. And that gives a certain sense of predictability. So the employee knows what the manager's expectations are, the manager knows what the employee is capable of, and the two can work together towards a successful project. From a firm perspective, it reduces turnover if we have predictability and reliability in our career advancement roles. So we know that, especially, I don't even know, it seems like for years and years it's been very hard to find new people to hire. It's critically important to be supportive of the staff that you have, and to nurture and encourage the staff that has a great chemistry with your office, and to have very open lines of communication with employees that are not working out well, so you can figure out what the problem is there. Is the employee not understanding what the expectations are? Does the employee not have the right background and training in what the expectations are? Is the manager maybe not communicating properly to the employee? So it's important for the firm to understand where disconnects occur. And sometimes it's just not the right employee. So why drag out that relationship? It's better for that employee to find the right fit if they're not the right fit at your firm. So opening up that communication, making very clear what the expectations are, and then measuring whether or not that employee is meeting those expectations benefits both the firm and the employee for their health, happiness, and ability to move positively through the company. And then, of course, return on investment. So a firm at the end of the day needs to stay profitable. Their goal is to be able to make money, to be successful, to be profitable for the employer and for all of the employees. So, of course, the employees want to be able to know as they're moving up the ladder that the firm can continue to support them with more work assignments, more pay, better benefits, more vacation time, et cetera, et cetera. And none of those things are possible without the firm being successful. So when an employee has unrealistic expectations of what they are owed by the firm, they need to take a step back and look at what they're contributing to the firm's success and see how those two things balance out. So some firms put in place opportunities for employees to bring in work, and they maybe have a bonus at the end of the year, or they may have profit sharing experience. But as employees move up, they need to understand that their responsibilities and their commitment to the firm has to be in check with what their expectations of what they're going to get back from the firm. So the two parties have to work in concert with each other. And then any good firm owner will tell you that the success, the happiness and satisfaction of the employee is directly related to their ability to be productive and positively support the firm. So it's in the firm's benefit to have a happy, balanced employee, and it's to the employee's benefit to be giving back to the firm and creating that positive cycle between the two parties. And then the improvement to the profession is having that shift in some of these negative profiles and perspectives that we're seeing related to the profession, where we're seeing disgruntled employees that are leaving the profession, people that are dissatisfied with the process and the procedure, or with the path to licensure, and with the satisfaction during the varied times of their work-life balance. Is the profession able to support me through changes in my work-life balance? And that's both firm-related and profession-related, because if the profession adopts the support system, then that trickles down through the firms to the managers, to the employees. Okay. Carla.
Okay. I love this slide because a lot of what we're talking about today, yes, equity, but it also has to do with leadership. And this is a much broader topic. John Berzema from Young and Rubicon wrote this book, The Athena Doctrine, in 2013. And it's really starting to take off in business, is that people who have these certain traits end up leading to improved value and better business success and profitability. And you know what we find, and what they've found actually, is that women have a lot of these traits just naturally. There are also masculine traits of leadership, the ones we're typically familiar with, being proud and aggressive and making decisions. I think the value is in being able to take these qualities and traits that we have, combine them with the ability to make decisions, because we know we can, and to be resilient, and bring the best of that to the projects and the companies that you're working with. And the more that you feel confident about, you know, being vulnerable, showing humility, sometimes that's easier at a leadership level, where I can actually ask questions of staff, even though maybe I know the answer, to get them talking and thinking and feeling comfortable that we can engage in a conversation. And it helps us in terms of tapping the energy of employees. But I don't want to go through each of these, but I want the women out there to really feel confident in the soft skills that you have that you may not have even thought about, that you bring that to the table with you every day, and to make sure you sit at the table And for the men that are, running the companies and the firms, whether small, medium, large, that you take notice that, what we offer can help make better decisions and make better decisions even faster and help the bottom line. And so, I'm going to challenge all of you to think about different situations you've been in, and whether you experienced aggression or you experienced tough roles, think about how and other ways you can handle those to bring groups together. So that's really why I wanted to share this slide, because leaders, we've been talking about leadership, right? Training yourself, developing yourself, understanding what you want in a career, or it's a journey. You can change your path along the way. There's a lot of self-thinking that you do, but have confidence in who you are and bring that forward so that the leaders and bosses, can tap into it to help their business. I'll turn it back to you and Paul.
Thank you, Carla.
If you,
Okay. Okay. Paul?
All right. So we're talking about flexibility within employees and within firms. And so, people look at flexibility and say, okay, well, as an employer, it's going to be too expensive for me to implement something if people are working off-site and people are working on-site, and there's less communication. And that may be true in the beginning. That's a little bit more difficult to implement different systems, or like you were talking about earlier, where one person wants to do something and everyone feels, oh, they're getting special treatment. But the more that you can get to know your people, and the more that you can say, hey, how do I help you? Do you have a concern? Do you have a childcare issue that, Fridays you need to take off, or doctor's appointments that become issues? How can I be accommodating to you? Because that leads to everyone's more productivity, because they say, hey, this firm is behind me, they're caring about me, they're helping me. How can I help them more, right? So you want to be more involved in companies that are willing to help you out. So looking at, as an employer's aspect, how can we be more flexible with what our employees need, so that there's not upfront, or there may be upfront costs on it, but in the long run, you're going to gain a lot more from those employees by helping them out with what they're doing, and they're going to be more dedicated to you and more productive with you. It's going to reduce turnover, because then when we're supporting people, then they're looking to stay there because now they're learning, because you're going out of your way to help them, and they don't know that some other firm is going to be doing that. So they want to stay with you, which is less training time and less time searching for other people. Mental wellness, client retention, or personnel retention. The cost to add someone, it's just, I've been looking for a long time. I finally just added another person recently, but it just drags you down. Like, I got other things to worry about. I want to run my business, not necessarily be looking to hire another employee and train them and do that. So I want to treat my people well so that they want to stay here all the time. So I'm not, looking for other people. And then, your productivity increases, the happiness increases. And if other people are looking at it and saying, oh, well, this person's getting special treatment, then I think as an employer, it's important for us to say, hey, they had a special request, which is great. So if any of you guys have any special requests for things, we're flexible. We're willing to help you. That's what we want to do here. I tell my people, like, if you have a doctor's appointment, if you need to get to your kid's game, whatever that is, that's fine. All I ask is that you put in the 8 hours a day. So if that's going to be coming in early, so then you can leave earlier, or juggling it around, working 10 hours one day and 6 hours one day, that's fine. So I let them know I'm flexible, do whatever you want. I just ask that, I'm paying you for a certain amount of time, you work for a certain amount of time, and we produce the amount of work that we talked about and what the expectations are. So from an employer's perspective, I think we have to be very flexible with what we're doing in order to attract the right people and to help those people then advance in their careers, so that someone isn't stuck. Oh, I can't do the typical 9 to 5, so now I'm never going to be able to learn enough and advance in the company. And so then from an employee's perspective, I think it's important to say, if you're working for a company that's inflexible, how do I seek out a company that is flexible and go work there? So maybe that is your peer network group, talking to other people and finding out what firms are flexible with that, or what firms are willing to accommodate you. Or maybe it's going out and doing freelance stuff for a while, because that's going to help your career. So then you can work for multiple people and do things. But so from both perspectives, the flexibility is good, but from an employee, you know, if your firm doesn't offer that, go talk to them and say, hey, look, this is what I propose. I'm still going to produce the same work. I'm going to be dedicated. I'm going to do this, but you know, I do have a special request for something here, and see how that works out.
Thank you. So when you go back to the office tomorrow, whether you're from an employer's standpoint, here are some questions that I want you to think about asking yourself to determine what position you're in. Okay, so do your employees perceive that your firm is fair in how it supports career growth? And this can be something that you think about on your own, or it's, you know, things that you actually survey people. How does the firm check for bias in responses to work-life benefit requests such as flex time? Are biases investigated and addressed? So if you're starting to see or hear rumblings of people thinking people are getting preferential treatment, how do you address that? I, for example, used to work for a firm that had actually a pretty progressive principal, but he was kind of disconnected from the office culture. So there was a real fraternity in the office culture, and the employer, or you know, the principal was kind of, you know, out marketing and disconnected from that fraternity. And it was extremely difficult for me to engage with that fraternity group. I was never able to break into it. And it created such a weird dynamic. And I had a great relationship with the employer. In fact, he often was including me in doing marketing work with him, which created an even greater disconnect between me and the fraternity, because then they felt I was getting to do special work or other work. So when I brought this to the attention of the employer, he didn't want to address it with the fraternity. He said, oh, well, you know, we're here talking about it now, so it's resolved. And I said, no, it isn't resolved. This cultural problem still exists. So as the employer, how do you handle when you have these kinds of biases going on in the office? How are you have to be a positive role model. You have to speak the right language and communicate that those kinds of microaggressions and bias are not acceptable to you as the firm principal, and then that culture will permeate throughout everything that's going on at the firm. Does your firm recognize and support an array of architectural skills and areas of expertise? So that talks about that, that suggestion that I had before of having employees bring to the forefront their unique areas of expertise and training, and sharing some of those things and highlighting some of those things, and making sure those employees are recognized and feel special for those things that they have brought to the table. How does your firm evaluate an employee's readiness for promotion? So today we talked a lot about having a written criteria. We talked a little bit about review process. We talked about mentorship relationships. We talked about word of mouth promotion from inside of professional networks. So how does your firm evaluate how people have progressed and if they're ready for advancement? And how do you choose who is going to be selected? I heard an example recently of a firm who, it's a larger firm, so it may not be applicable to everybody that's on the call here, but let's say they were ready to promote a new project manager. So the principals would survey all of the existing project managers and say, who from the rank below you do you feel is best qualified to join your, you know, who would best be appropriate to join your level? And that is part of the consideration in the process. So that's a great way of taking a look at cultivating a positive relationship between staff by having them be a part of the process of moving people up in promotion. So it's important to think about your process in promotion and how you communicate that process to your staff. Okay. Paul, you're up.
All right, so still talking about flexibility here and about greater advancement with your career. So health, a person's health, I think, is very important. It's probably paramount to everything else. You know, we have one body, and everything that we want to do in life is contingent upon us being healthy and this body of ours being able to carry us around and do what we need it to do. So from an employer's point of view, we have to do what we can to help promote our employees and giving them leeway, giving them flexibility if they need to come in late because they're doing something or go home early because they need to do something. I think that's critical because I think person's health is paramount to everything else, because if they're not healthy, it's going to nag on them and they're not going to be dedicated to what they're doing, or their mind isn't going to be into it. So keeping them from being burnt out from what they're doing, giving them breaks at appropriate times, you know, just doing what we can to help them out and be aware of any issues that they're having and any special treatment that they may require so that they can do what they need to do. And happiness goes along with that, because if you're unhealthy, it is real tough to be happy all the time. So what is it that our employees need in order to be happy in their lives? And that's meaningful work is a lot. So everyone wants to feel right, like man's search for meaning. We want to say, what is it that I contribute here? How do I contribute to my clients? How do I contribute to my work environment so that I am doing good things and I feel good about it? So then you're going to be more productive when you are happy about those things. And, you know, career choices, helping them with what they're doing, helping them with what their path is, all contributes. That's the same mindset of the health and the happiness. It all goes along with those career choices and the job meaning and how they can get promoted, or knowing clearly what's involved there, no uncertainty. So I think our communication with them, just like our communication with different clients is important, our communication with our employees or with our employers is very important, so that they know where we're headed, what we want to do, and how we want to get there. And then I'll roll into role modeling with assessment of if you can treat your employees equitably, fairly, encourage at the work-life balance like you talked about earlier, without penalties of frowning on someone because they have to leave early or they have other requirements, then I think that helps with everyone, whether you're the minority, whether you're the majority. Anyone benefits from these practices that we're talking about. And I think everyone has to step up and take control of their situations and seek those places that do offer it. And you know what, if you can't find any, then go out and create your own firm that does that. There are no limitations to what we can do in today's environment. And with all the connectivity and networking that's possible, there's really no excuse not to be able to do it. And if you don't like it, if you're unhappy, find other people that are unhappy, form a group, create a company, and do what you don't see done somewhere else. But also always keep in mind the things that you didn't like about other workplaces, change that each place you go to, right? So create the environment that you want to work in. Don't just wait for someone else to change it. Don't wait for the employer to give you that right opportunity, because they may not do that. So take it up to you to do that. And if you can't find anything, go out and create it on your own. Maybe it's a side job that grows and grows and grows, and eventually you get it big enough with some friends, with just yourself, that you can create this ideal environment that you want to work in. Look at the companies that are very successful, that treat their employees very well, and become one of those companies. They all started small. They all started in their garage or in a cousin's basement or wherever. Do that same thing, and be willing to put in the work to get what you want. I think will lead you a long way. And then create that balance, create that flexibility, create the environment that you want to work in. It's what I always try and do. I love where I work and what I do. And every day I say, okay, what would I want if I were working here? How do I create that environment? So if you're unhappy, move, create it yourself, but always be proactive in your own life. I'll get off the soapbox now.
Great. I just wanted to say on this topic that when the firm is developing their goals for promotion or their milestones for promotion, think about it in direct correlation to what the goals of the firm are. So of course, the goals of the firm are to produce quality work on time, under budget, in a successful way, work that the firm can be proud of, having positive relationships with your clients, that they recommend you for work to other people or that they come back for more, that the staff feel positive and like they are contributing positively to the work of the firm, and make sure that those criteria for advancement relate to those things. So some of the criteria should relate to the employee's relationships with clients. Do you get positive feedback from your clients about those staff members? Do you get negative feedback from your clients? Do they finish their work on time? So on time also is relative. Sometimes we are carrying traditions on our back that, that we've been taught. Just last week, somebody said to me, please, Stacey, when you're giving these seminars, keep in mind that in architecture school, things were very screwy. Sometimes people would really be evaluated on the hours and hours and hours that they spent in studio, even though they couldn't possibly be productive at 3 o'clock in the morning. But there was some credit given to you burning that midnight oil that, that made you a more dedicated designer than the person sitting next to you who efficiently finished their work at, even 9 p.m. and went home and got some sleep. So, I mean, really, what is the benefit of working longer hours if you're getting the same quality product? So think about, do the milestones align with what the productivity and the success of the firm really are intended to be? And think about those things. We all go through periods of our careers where we have to put our nose to the grindstone a little bit more than in other phases. But think about, every person here has a goal. Why do people come to work? They come to work to earn a living and to be able to have a quality life with all aspects of their life being considered there. So how do we as an employer and as a firm play a part in that overall success? And how do the milestones that we expect of them work in sync and in balance with those things? So there's nothing more wonderful in saying, this has been a dedicated employee of my firm who has progressed and blossomed and become a valuable part of our community for 20 years, for 30 years, look at Carla's example, that she has gone through so many different phases of her work-life balance, and her path has probably gone in many different routes on her lattice, and she has been able to remain at her one firm with success that she's very proud to be able to tell us what she's achieved, and now she can give back to the next generation by cultivating similar success to what she's had. And Paul, through his history, took the most important pieces of his work experience and practice and rolled them and combined them into what he's doing now, and then gives that back to the next generation by speaking in colleges, speaking on seminars like this, and volunteering, and all of the work that the three of us do through the American Institute of Architects as committee chairs and community leaders to bring this message so that people know you're not alone in this world. You're not alone in the profession, that you have learning opportunities, training and development opportunities to achieve more at your current employment, at your future employment, and maybe at owning your own firm or developing your business in other partnerships and aspects, and taking a look at those varied career paths that cross over as we go through our careers. Paul, a little bit on networks.
All right, so I think networks are huge. Whenever I speak to people and trying to mentor them or help them out, guide them a little bit, the number one thing I advise is grow your network. So as a business owner, I realize that the bigger my network is, the more powerful it is, and the more work is going to be coming into me, because I know more people, I can influence more people, and they're going to help bring work into me. The same thing is true when you're an employee. So your network becomes huge because, like you said earlier, most jobs are not posted somewhere. It's word of mouth that people hear about things. So the more people that you know and can be influential in your life, the better it is for you, because you're going to hear about different job opportunities. They're going to be looking out for you and trying to help you. So nurture every relationship that you have. And, you know, if that's reaching out, if you meet someone that you think is important or you think you'd like to keep in touch with, shoot them an email once in a while, send them a handwritten thank you card, do whatever you have to do to keep in touch with people and grow your network of people that you know and can help you with your career path. And I'll keep that short for you.
Okay. Now we'd like to open it up to questions and answers. Anybody who's on the webinar is welcome to type in their question, and we will do our best to answer it. While we're waiting for any questions, I will let you know that the next equity guide presentation is currently scheduled for September 9th. The presentation will be on equity in communities, and we will have a similar panel as we did tonight to talk about the way that architects can have an equitable impact on communities. I think this is something very important for some of the conversations that we're seeing now, right, across the country with architects' impact on communities and the attitudes and impressions that people are having with their built environment. So I'm looking forward to an engaged conversation there, and we'll have registration out for that soon. I see that we have something came in our chat. Oh, thank you for a job well done. Okay, so we didn't have any other questions come in. So, oh, here we go. We got a question. It's been very helpful. Thank you. So we're getting our thanks messages now. I would like to thank Carla and Paul both for bringing such a wide perspective to the conversation tonight. It certainly enriched everything that I was planning to talk about, and also triggered additional thoughts and comments from the audience, which was great. Thanks for all of our participants for being on the call. Pretty much everybody made it to the end, which was great. 2 hours is a long time. I hope someone's been preparing your dinner while you've been sharing the program here with me today. So thank you, Carla and Paul. Do you have any closing comments before we log out?
I'll start be proactive in your career and know what you want and go after it, and don't ever, 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 ever give up on it.
Yes, I would say be confident in what you do and what you'd like to achieve, and take the time to figure it out. There are no wrong answers.
Excellent. Okay, that's it for tonight. We did record this presentation. You are going to be getting a survey from AIA New Jersey, and we ask you to complete that survey, and then you will be receiving a link to our program so that you can go back and follow up on anything that you may have missed. I think one more person has their hand raised. Lisa, do you see that somebody has their hand raised?
I don't.
Okay, then I guess we're good. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, Stacey.